right, it's time for another episode of the PEBAheads, and our special guest this week is Bob from Yuma. Bob, how you been?
I've been good. Thank you for asking me, Sean.
Yeah, before we started, we were kind of talking about what direction we were going to go with this, and was getting into a good conversation before we even hit record. So, you want to tell the league, Bob, when you joined, joined the league, and then kind of what brought you to playing out of park baseball?
Yeah, I know. I can't remember exactly how I got to out of park baseball. I was just searching online for, that's right, for baseball, computer baseball games that could be played on the Macintosh, and there were not many at all. And then when I saw the OOTP invitation, they were listed a number of leagues that you could join, and here was this league that was focused on writing. And I thought that was perfect for me. So that's when I contacted John Rodriguez and was put on the waiting list. And as Scott and I were just discussing a minute ago, we both came into the game about the same time. Um, Apparently 2008 in real time and 2010 in game time is a best estimate. And that's the only use I've had for OOTP since then, is to play in the PEBA League.
Well,
So
I'm
you
intrigued.
haven't been in any other leagues, Bob? You haven't played in any other leagues other than PEBA?
Not online. I play in a face-to-face APBA league still with dice and cards, but this is the only online league. Yeah.
I think Tim in Duluth used to do one of those, and he was telling me one time it was like through the mail. Like he played a league where it was through the mail that way when they did their games.
Yeah. We do ours through email because it's a little quicker, but yeah, you sit down and roll the dice for 8 straight games against your opponent.
Pretty crazy.
It is crazy.
But I mean, you think about it, stuff like that is like what led to people playing fantasy baseball, fantasy football, like taking, they were doing similar, like keeping everything by hand and like running the numbers and setting up leagues that way, and then those transitioned over to being able to be done on the computer. But I know some guys that still do the fantasy baseball just hand, like they go in and they look at box scores and do all that. It's wild. I'm like, that's dedication to keep doing it that way, but it's fun. So, and that's what we're here for.
That's right. It's the pleasure of it.
Yeah. Well, and then another area that we're starting to dive into, and I wanted to hit record because I didn't want to miss out on it, was that you were saying that when you first joined PEBA, you were almost immediately removed.
Yeah. John Rodriguez, the first thing he did before he assigned me to the Yuma team is he wanted to check out whether I was a writer or not, I guess. And so he told me to look on the website and pick an article and write a response to it. So I did. And he liked it a great deal and then told me about all the rules he then had at that time for posting articles online. And I thought that was fine. And so then he handed me the Yuma team, and I immediately started writing articles about a GM who was going to Alaska to check out the Kivalina team, and he was going to get lost and all kinds of stuff. And apparently, I used language that John found offensive or difficult or something. And he started criticizing me about it. And my response was to invent a whole set of other characters that this general manager bitched to about being censored. And he didn't like that. So he told me for a month I couldn't write any articles and he was going to watch me closely. I guess I kept my mouth shut for that month, or my pen stored away for that month. And I passed the test and came back in the league. But he and I bristled the whole time he was running the league. He and I bristled constantly over the what seemed to me very petty and very arcane rules he had for the way to write articles.
He did. He did. I do remember that. He had a lot of rules that you had to follow. And
He did.
and when you wrote something and submitted it, well, at least me, it was never one time submission. It was like, no, you're gonna have to fix this, this, and this. I felt like I was in a classroom.
Yeah, well, for me, that was particularly difficult because I've been a writing teacher for 40 years or until I retired, and a published author before I joined the OTP, or PEBA. So when he started editing my work, I guess I took it personally. And so I challenged him and pushed him in every way I could to see what I could get away with.
Well, we can segue to your writing for an author side even further. You wrote a book about the league.
Yeah,
Like you, tell us a little
that's
bit
my
what
novel
drove you,
about, that's my,
what
huh?
what drove you to be like, you know what? This league that I was like almost get kicked out of. Now I've been here long enough. I want to write a book.
There was a guy in the league. I wish I could remember his name right now. Actually, it's in I dedicated the book to him, so it should be there at the beginning. Ron Collins, he came into the league and started writing a whole series of articles about two characters who visited every single PEBA city and PEBA team during a season or two. And he wrote it and published it as a book called See the PEBA on $25 a Day. And I had read his articles, and in fact, he and I had conversed several times about it. And I thought that was a good idea. What could I do with that? So I looked back at the articles I had, and sure enough, the articles that had caused John Rodriguez the most problems were the most promising in terms of a novel. So I just started to develop, and I used my weekly access to the website to publish stories that kept the story going. I was teaching at the time at Cal State Channel Islands, which was a brand new campus on a converted mental hospital building. And so there were some places in the old hospital that hadn't been converted and updated yet, still looked like an old mental hospital. I remember the rings hanging off the wall where patients would sometimes be restrained. And there were the great water tubs where they used the very painful water treatment on them. And so I started thinking, what if I have this crazy GM who's already in trouble with the league, and I decide that he gets committed to the hospital? So I put him in the hospital. Since I was teaching in one, I had access to lots of material about it. And that's where the novel came from. It's the struggles of a GM to continue to run a baseball team while he's in residence at a mental hospital.
Well, and
What
since
could go
that
wrong?
GM, yeah, you've got multiple GMs that you've written about with Yuma, and I always enjoy seeing what they're up to and what comes up next. That's
I
for sure.
know.
God, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, no, you just looked like you were. Well, with your latest article, Bob, it left a lot of suspense and just like a cliffhanger of what's going to happen next with these two GMs that one's already gone and another one looks like they're out the window.
Yeah, they're both gone because I'm retiring from the league. This is my last season, and I will finish out the season. And as soon as it goes to the playoffs, um, Commissioner Mike will take over, and he already says he has a replacement lined up for me. So I'm resigning from the PEBAverse, and I wanted to get my two GMs out of there. They have their final conversation in this really lovely little restaurant in Yuma, which is like an oasis because of the birds and the flowers and the dripping water everywhere in the middle of this town. I was there just 2 weeks ago, 110 degrees, and you walk into this space and it's really comfortable and cool. And I thought that was the place to put them because I don't know where they go next in life, but at least they're comfortable there. I could leave them in my imagination sitting in that lovely space enjoying lunch. But it's
Yeah,
time
you
for me
can.
to leave.
Do you think you'll follow the team at all after you leave, or you think it'll be a clean break?
No, I'll pay attention and keep watching, particularly to see if somebody who follows me can finally make Yuma win a few games. Um, I had 3 or 4 seasons where they were in the playoffs very early on, and I've now had 20 seasons since then where I could hardly get out of the basement. I've had some frustration with the way OOTP runs things that makes it really hard for small teams that have a history of losing ever breaking out of that. There are certain built-in disadvantages that I've discussed with guys over the years. And so I'm interested to see if it was also partly me, if somebody else will have find a way to make that team successful. I'm trying my best to leave it in the best possible condition. Though I got to tell you, it's really tempting to do bizarre things. You know, send you
You
all
do
my
bizarre
best
things.
hitters, Scott. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have any.
You've done a good job though of finding players in the draft and then like it's and then getting them to the PEBA level. It just seems like their timelines have been not as connected for when they're peaking, and then you're like, well, I can't afford this guy, so I need to move him before to get some pieces back, and then it's hard to get out of that cycle, like what you're
It
saying with
is.
the market size.
And for several years, I had early draft picks, talented guys that would come in, and in the first year or two in the minors, they were on the all-star team or they were given awards. They were doing fine. And they'd get to the AAA level or the PEBA level, and they would become average major leaguers in the PEBAverse. And I kept wondering why that was. And I mean, I discussed it with people in the league. One of the suggestions was that I didn't have talented enough scouts or managers to continue to develop them. And the game is built in, you can't do that. I couldn't hire the people with the best ratings managers because they all come up with lists. I refuse to be a manager at Yuma or
Yep.
Kivalina or Henderson. I couldn't do anything about that. I felt very frustrated by that. It
Well,
was
that
sad to
was I
watch.
remember we talked about that one time, and I was like, I could at first I didn't understand what the problem was, and then you're explaining it to me, and I'm like, yeah, these guys aren't even like if Bob wanted to double their salary, they're like, nope, still don't want to go. Like, what are you supposed to
No,
do? The only thing I've been able to figure out, and I think it's unique to this league, is just converting old players into coaches. That's the only way to get around it because
yep.
and you can do that twice a year or two times with each off season. So that'd be the only recommendation I would give to people watching this is if you're not doing it, look into it because at least you can get an above average coach, maybe, hopefully, like and maybe find a tie to your squad, like bring in an old veteran guy just to
Yeah, and it's fun. Look, it's fun having your old players be managers or
It
coaches.
is. Yep. All my
Speaking
top
of which,
spots are
Bob,
now filled with.
do you have any favorite players from your tenure with Yuma?
Yeah, if you look at my personnel, you'll see whole bunches of them. I have two Hall of Famers there and a couple of other successful players there because I started doing that, converting them. I think it's part of the reason the team got out of the basement finally was the coaches were at least happier as a group, and I've moved them up as best I can so that when the current manager of the major league team, the Arroyos, leaves, it should be one of the former players who gets promoted into that position, and I'll finally have a manager who was a former player too. But there are some limitations with that too. One of the players I most wanted to bring back was a catcher, and he simply refused to become a coach or a manager. In the game, you go and make a request to that player, and the player simply said, no interest in a career coaching or managing. So there are limitations still put on the
go.
things you can do even when you come up with a good plan.
Well, just looking over your squad now and then some of the players in the minor leagues, whoever does get to take the reins next is going to have some pieces to build and work with, it looks like. And, there's a lot of guys. It looks like, a 19-year-old second baseman, Kelly. There's another second baseman that looks really close to being ready that could, Augusto Hernandez, that looks really promising. Some power guys there with this Eric Terry. So there's definitely some nice pieces there to build with, and nobody can
Yeah,
say that you didn't leave them with something to build with.
Yeah, the Calgary squad, the what is that, double A squad, is full of guys who are ready to move up and look talented and look like they should be able to play at the major league level. And I'm hoping they will.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to be a good, hopefully a good situation for someone coming into the league. It looks like it will be, and I think you've put them in a lot better place than a lot of teams are when new people come into the league to inherit a squad. Because I mean, you look at from top to bottom, your coaching, you've improved that area. A lot of times when people come into the league, there are no coaches even on the minor league team, or if there are, they're not very good. And you've got pieces there.
Right.
You've got you've got draft picks. That's the other thing. A lot of people trade away all these draft picks, and you're not leaving with that gap. So whoever comes in will have their full use of picks, and the big thing is just young, cheap players that look like they can perform or perform more than what they can't what they have so far. And like you're saying, there's plenty of guys at that double A level and some at triple A too that look like they're ready. So I don't like to see you go, Bob, because I always like reading what's going on in
Thank you.
Yuma and seeing how you're doing. So
I
It's
like
you
been
picking
know,
on you.
thanks. It's been a decision that's been a long time in making. Um, a couple of seasons ago, I started to think about how much anxiety, stress is caused every time we change from one OOTP version to the next. And for me, particularly, that sometimes takes a week of constant conversations with um, Mike and others to try to find the right place in the computer file system to put things and make the game work. And I'm not technologically savvy, so it's really frustrating. Um, the other thing is, for the past couple of years, every time I try to access the website or the forums where you post articles and stuff, it doesn't recognize my password. And I counted it the other day, 15 new passwords generated in the past year by um, Mike, mostly, simply because the software is not connecting for me for some reason. And I don't know, for a long time, I thought it was just me. I'm getting old. I can't even type my own passwords. But then I started relying entirely on the computer to remember what the password was and to produce the password in a semi-automatic way. The biggest one was yesterday. I had Mike generate a new password. I copied it right off the screen when he gave it to me, used it. It worked perfectly. I went to dinner, I came back, logged in, and it was no longer accessible. So the software was screwing me up in some way. So that's been a pain that I've been thinking about. When we switched to the current chat system, which is called Discord, it caused a great deal of discord for me. For a couple of days, I couldn't even read the screen. I couldn't figure out how to get it to a readable situation. And then somebody suggested I go to a black background and then I could read it. And though I find that visually affronting, I could do it. But the other thing is, I can't find people. Like, for example, Scott, I can't find you anywhere in order to connect with you in Discord, because the old Slack always had a list on the left hand side of everybody in the league, and I could just click and there would be their icon. And so there are things about it I just don't understand. So all of that is added up to my sense of it is time to say goodbye.
I've had some frustrations with Discord. It's a learning curve. I don't remember how long we used Slack, but I got used to it, and it did seem pretty user friendly to me. From what I understand, they can do more things with Discord, which is why we moved to it. Which I get. It's a lot different from Slack, and I'm still adjusting to it myself. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate your frustrations.
Yeah, I've
I
gotten a
know
lot of appreciation when I've expressed that frustration. I know Mike has real doubts about it, and he struggles with it too, because he's also on a Macintosh sometimes. And it just isn't friendly for us. So,
that's what's so weird about the version changes, like why they haven't figured out how to easily transition for Mac users, because that's always been a thing. Not always. I should take that back. It's been a thing for like the past, I don't know, 5 to 10 versions. But before that, it was a lot smoother from what I've heard of. The transition wasn't some go find a hidden folder somewhere and hope that it's the right one.
Yeah, if you go back, like, I think you're right. If you go back 10 years or 10 versions, Mike and I had worked out for Macintosh a method to do it of memorizing where the folder was and getting back to the folder and plugging everything into the folder. And that was working for us. And then they changed something, and they changed where they put the folders, and not just which folder, but which subsection. And you had to, we both, Mike and I, had to go hunting for it to try to find it. That became difficult enough. Then there was one season transfer where we had to manually transfer every single file for PEBAverse, manually, one file at a time, into a folder somewhere in the Macintosh system to make it work. And that took, I mean, the computer does it automatically, one file at a time, but it took 4 hours of the computer simply transferring files. The number of files was over 150,000 files. So there's a lot of junk in it that doesn't need to be there. But man, that was a headache.
And
Those are the
Frank
things I'll be glad to miss.
yeah, Frank is probably watching this saying, yeah, now everyone knows all the pain I go through with doing Stats Lab and taking all that information that's created from these files and putting it into a website.
Yeah.
I was having the same issue you have though with like logging into the league website. I'm like, I wrote this password down. I have this is not working. And then Dylan resent me one. It didn't work. And I think about like the fifth or sixth time, then it finally worked. And I'm like, did the same thing you did of, all right, I'm just saving it. I'm just saving it on my computer. I don't care if this gets hacked or whatever. Next time I go
Yeah.
to use it, it doesn't work.
It is a bit comforting to know that other people have that problem, because there were times when I thought,
Oh,
I'm just no longer capable of using computers. I can't even do the simplest thing.
no, that's why it's sad to see you go because that is definitely not a computer user issue. It is an issue with that format, and
Yeah.
I just hope that it would be really nice to see you from time to time. Hopefully, the new Yuma GM is okay with it, but it would be cool to see you write an article about the Yuma team next season or 2 years from now on how they're doing, and maybe you could interview that GM depending on how much of a writer they are. They might not be a
That's a good that's a
writer.
good idea. That would be fun. I will
Is it?
certainly keep that in mind. I have enjoyed a great deal writing the articles about Yuma, visiting the city about once a year on the way to spring training, reminding myself how goddamn hot that place is. So that's been fun. In
Yeah.
fact, I wanted to say that one of the things I will miss the most is the pun that was made very early on about the people I was inviting into my stories, and they were starting to be called the human beings. And I keep thinking about them that way and referring to them that way. And I think about the ones that I invented in the midst of the storytelling. And every once in a while, I go to Yuma, I go looking for them, for somebody like them. There was this woman, Asian woman, who ran a Mexican restaurant in downtown Yuma the first time I visited. Her name was Anna. Her name was on her restaurant. And then her restaurant closed, and I kind of wondered what happened to her. So I started inventing this character in my stories, Anna, who ran a taco truck so that she could be anywhere in my story that I needed her. Anna would show up with her tacos. I will miss Anna and her tacos.
What's going to happen is you're going to be somewhere, and there's going to be a taco truck, and there's going to be an Asian woman running the truck, and then you're going to be like, "What? Is your name Anna?" And she's going to look at you like, "No."
That's right. I'll run right up and introduce myself. Hi, Anna. We haven't seen you in years. Yeah.
So, Bob, once you leave PEBA, will you have anything to do with Out of the Park? Have you done any solo play with the game, or have you only really used it for PEBA?
Yeah, when the game was brand new, I occasionally did season plays of my favorite team, the Detroit Tigers or the San Francisco Giants, because the computer could go through a season in the time it would take me to play 50 APBA games, and that was delightful, but not so much anymore. And part of it's just the OOTP site and configuration and everything is not nearly as pleasing or as simple as it was. I don't get the pleasure out of it that I did back then. So I think I'll be done with the OTP. I'll be glad to be done with it. I'm not going to buy a new version. So
Now, there's times I think Scott and I have said would have been nice if we could have, if it was possible to stop on a version and just play that one. If it was like out of the park 24 or 23 and just play it for a while rather than having to switch. But I know Dylan's made the point before that like the actual games are not able to be downloaded on certain, like I think it's Steam or one of the other ones. They're not on
yeah,
there as long, and then you get run into that issue and licenses and all that stuff. But I don't know. I agree with you that at times it seems like they're making it more and more complex just for the sake of making it more and more complex, and it's not really it doesn't seem it's like a value add or adding more fun to the game. It's just adding something to add something.
yeah, I agree.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the league while we're
One,
here?
yeah, one more thing. I was given a gift when I first acquired the Yuma team, the Bulldozers back then. They had just before the GM before me had just signed a multi-year contract with an infielder named David Goody, and they offered him $12 million a year. Scott remembers this.
Oh yeah.
And David Goody was one of the worst players ever, and he was making $12 million a year. So I wrote several songs and articles about David Goody.
And you loved him. Let's be honest, you loved him to
I loved
like
him. Oh yes, he
like
was
a real
worth
human being.
everything. So I wanted to share with you. I pulled up the first article I wrote about him with the song. I wanted to share with you two verses of the song. It's sung to the tune of Davy Crockett from the old Disney shows. Born down in Houston, not in Tennessee, August 28 of 1983. A Texas boy, he played Little League, swung him a bat since he was only 3. Davy Goody, the Bulldozers albatross. Well, there's several verses that tell the history of David Goody. There's 4 of them in a row that begin with traded to so-and-so because he got traded around the league and came back to Yuma. I reacquired him specifically because I knew he was great story material. So here's the last verse. Yuma tried to force him to free agency. No luck because of a technicality. So they renegotiated an undisclosed fee for a new kind of contract on David Goody. Davy, target of our own hit men, from which I spun off a whole series about David Goody being hunted down by the mob and dead at one point, and then he shows up in Kivalina in disguise. Davy Goody was the greatest character I knew in Yuma.
Well, Bob, you are the greatest character
Thank you for
that
letting me share that.
you are the greatest character that I know in
Thanks.
PEBA.
Quite the character.
Thanks.
Well, thanks,
So I'll
guys.
retire the old hat. I'll hang it on my wall.
All right.
I got that the first year. Been with me the whole time.
Well, that one turned out well. I've seen some other people's that have had problems getting the colors right, and yours, at least, the colors
Yeah.
are right and it looks good.
Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
lasted
nice
well.
looking.
Yeah.
It, I don't wear it very often. It's really heavy. I don't know why, but for Yuma, you would never wear a hat that heavy. So I've tried to keep it in good shape.
Well, thanks for coming on with us. I know a lot of people are looking forward to see who the special guest is and what special news. And I'm just glad that we were able to get this put together. So thank you.
We're going to miss you,
Thank you
Bob.
for the opportunity. Thanks, Scott.
Definitely gonna miss you. Thanks. Talk to you all again sometime soon, and who knows, Bob, you might be on another one of these someday.
If I have something to tell you, I will be there.
All right.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye now.
From the lakes of Duluth to Havana's warm breeze, Reno's desert lights glow where the crowds ever free. Shinseki's wars with the bats held high. Yuma sandlot dreams touch the wide open sky. Palm Springs breathes the heat where the sun always shines. 32 teams united, crossing every line. From the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. And from the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. Swing for the stars in the PEBA game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 PEBA's the name, PEBA's the name. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. Scottish pipers cheer as the bases are run. New Orleans rhythm swings till the battle is won. Tempe's rolling the dice with the fastball surprise. Toyota's precision lights up in our eyes. Now machines are strong where the dust meets the tree. Florida's golden fields where the champions gleam. From the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. And from the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. Swing for the stars in the PEBA game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 PEBA's the name, PEBA's the name. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. 32 dreams, one world, one fight. From dusk till dawn, we're burning so bright. Every pitch, every hit, every play in the zone. The Planetary Baseball Alliance, we're never alone. From the fields to the stands, hear the planet unite. PEBA's the spark and we're taking flight. Swing for the stars in the PEBA game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 PEBA's the name, PEBA's the name. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. So raise up your gloves, let the banners fly high. From San Juan to Kalamazoo, we're reaching the sky. Planetary Extreme Baseball Alliance, where the legends are born. Swing for the stars, let the world hear